Hello and welcome back to Blues Armory, where today we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. Now, I know this channel is majoritively focused on costumes and cosplay and building, but it is all centered around my love for Star Wars. And I wanted to talk about something today based on the news that we've been hearing over the last week or so about the cancellation of the Acolyte. Now, don't switch off just because I'm talking about the Acolyte. I hope that I can give you some interesting tidbits and my personal view on my thoughts and feelings about the Acolyte and what it means for Star Wars going forward. So let's jump into it. So yeah, we're in a different setting today because I didn't feel like it needed a full setup of over there, but you've got the background of all my Star Wars stuff, and here's a clone troop out. So last week or the week before, we found out from a Deadline article that the Acolyte is most likely not going to be renewed for a second season. And I want to make that distinction because the Acolyte was a series commissioned by Disney for one season as we know it. Although Leslie Headland and the creative team have talked about how they had plans for multiple other seasons, that was it. They were bought for one season. That's how these things work. You're commissioned for a season. If it does well, then you might get another season. Compare it to something like Andor, where Andor was commissioned for 2 seasons. Now, if they weren't going to do the second season of Andor, then that would be cancelled. This simply just hasn't been renewed. So that's one clarification I need to get out of the way that I've seen a lot of people talking about. It hasn't been cancelled. It's just not been renewed, and it's not officially not been renewed, but it's not been like, we're cancelling this show. They're just not renewing it. It happens all the time with television. Obi-Wan Kenobi didn't get renewed for a second season. Book of Boba Fett didn't get renewed for a second season. Like, this happens in television. Anyway, so what's my feeling about that? Pretty sad, to be honest. I enjoyed The Acolyte, and I'll go into my pros and cons about The Acolyte as a series. But overall, I think it made great strides in storytelling and telling a different story in Star Wars. And I think it's really disappointing that that's not going to go ahead for a second season. And I really think there was a chance for a second season to do some interesting stuff. Look, first seasons of shows can be bad. If they'd done this with Star Wars The Clone Wars, can you imagine? The first season is not good. It's not great. But it's setting the stage for what is going to be a now 7-series pinnacle of Star Wars television, which we all absolutely love. So let's break it down into my pros and cons of the Acolyte. Let's start with the things that I didn't like, because let's get the negativity out the way. There are probably 3 things I didn't like about the Acolyte. One was the pacing. Quite clearly, it's just suffering from that Disney Plus thing where the pacing feels like it should have been a movie, but it ended up being a 8-episode TV show. I mean, this is what Obi-Wan felt like as well. It's just not structured for television, and I think that's a massive mistake, because there were episodes where I was just a complete, not waste of time, but like in a movie it would have felt like, especially the flashback scenes, in a movie it wouldn't have felt as bad to do the flashbacks, but when you're waiting week to week for an episode and you get an episode that's just a flashback, it feels a bit weird. Okay. Secondly, sorry, I keep looking over here because I've got notes over here because I wanted to be succinct and constructive in what I spoke about here. So there were some weird threads in the show, and mainly Basil. Why is Basil existing? What was his motivation? I don't know. Most of the theories and the storylines wrapped up quite nicely for me, but like stuff like Basil, I was just very confused. And then 2 small ones. I think the acting overall was fantastic. I think in some places the acting was maybe not the best thing, but that could have been down to the writing, and then you compare it to the prequels, that it's pretty on brand for Star Wars sometimes. And then the lightsabers were too thick. I'm sorry, the lightsabers were beautifully designed, but they were just too thick, and I totally understand that it was a lighting thing, and they have the full system of lighting inside the lightsabers, so the gaffers and the sparks and all those guys can remotely operate the lights and the lightsabers to create different effects. That is super cool, but it just didn't look very cool. I don't love them, but the designs themselves were fantastic. Anyway, that is it for what I didn't like. Few small things that I didn't like. and you're not going to love everything, but let's talk about what I actually really liked with the Acolyte. So the setting, having a setting 100 years before the Phantom Menace in the High Republic era, I haven't really read any High Republic stuff. The closest I've gotten to the High Republic is probably Jedi Survivor. And then I think I've read maybe 1 or 2 issues of comics, but I've not read any of the books. I love Star Wars books, but I've not gotten around to the High Republic because I'm still working through a backlog of other Star Wars books at the moment. So the setting is fantastic. To get her out of that either between episode 4 and 5, or episode 6 and 7, or 5 and 6, or 3 and 4, that Skywalker saga, we're outside of it, and that is really cool and really exciting. Next up was the characters. Overall, I absolutely love the characters. Master Soul was incredible. Torben was great and complicated, and I felt for him, and obviously I saw, you know, why he made the decisions in the show. A really well written character. Master Indara was great. Vanestra Rowe was great. Overall, I just really liked the characters. Oh, and also Chimera, the Stranger, just incredible. Like, the performance from Manny Jacinto, the athleticism and physicality, but also the nuance in his delivery. Oh, it was just chef's kiss. I'd love to do a Stranger. In fact, I'll show you something. I actually 3D printed this mini Stranger. It's not going to focus. It's really hard to focus. But I 3D printed this mini Stranger helmet from Galactic Armory because I thought it would be cool. Yeah, the characters I think were overall pretty awesome. I really enjoyed the acting and also the characterization of a lot of people. Loved seeing the good and bad side of the Jedi, because obviously the Jedi are a fallible sort of organization and wielding absolute power and all that kind of stuff. It's nice to see that, you know, they're not perfect in that sense. The fights, the lightsaber fights, were phenomenal. I think it was episode 4 or 5, the one in the woods with the stabby. Spoilers if you've not seen it. That fight is amazing, and my biggest gripe of that fight, don't get me wrong, it was amazing, what a lightsaber fight. My biggest gripe was like, why are we doing this at night? Please do this. I think one of the greatest things about, obviously, the fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan is a good fight, in my opinion. Hot take, is too long, goes on for way too long. That fight is great, but I absolutely adore the Duel of the Fates fight, although it is more ballet than it is lightsaber fighting. That fight is so good, and it's so good because it's pretty much all very well lit. Means you can just see everything that's going on. It makes it really exciting. But the final fight of the show between Chimera and Master Soul is just phenomenal. It's so good. I was so giddy watching that fight. So the fights were absolutely amazing. I hope they bring back that stunt team, and whoever the stunt coordinator was on that, I'd love for them to come back for some other Star Wars, so we can just see some more kick-ass Star Wars lightsaber fights. Character design and costume design was phenomenal. Loads of, like, we've obviously just had Andor, which everyone says is the greatest Star Wars show ever to be. It's fine. People said it was boring at the beginning, and now it's the greatest thing ever. I have a gripe with that. It's fine. I really enjoyed Andor, but we'll get past that. I'll come back to the whole Andor thing. The characters in Andor, it's a very gritty human Star Wars story. Then we come to the Acolyte, and it's like weird alien, Wookiee Jedi, weird alien, awesome. The witches, what an incredible costume design, like all the intricate details on there. The Jedi robes looked amazing. I've said it before, Chimera's helmet design being cortosis and having all like this influences from like the Old Republic and Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren. Just awesome. I'd love to do a High Republic. I should do a High Republic Jedi costume at some point. That would be sick. I've always wanted to do a Jedi, so maybe we do a High Republic Jedi because that's different and fun. Anyway, linked to characters and costume design was the world design. A lot of this was constructed sets. I know they did use the volume for some of it, but there was a lot of practical constructed sets, and that looked amazing, and that's probably why the show was quite expensive. The sets were amazing. That first noodle shop in episode 1 is so cool. Who doesn't want a Star Wars noodle shop? That's just cool. The world building and the world character, just that whole aesthetic of the world was absolutely amazing. The only downside I think on that was the Jedi Temple felt very small, in just a way that we'd not seen before. But obviously I understand that you know, the Jedi Temple isn't all these massive hallways that we see in the prequels. There probably is smaller rooms for people to, you know, just do normal day-to-day Jedi stuff in. I said this before, having something outside of the Skywalker saga is just, that's great, so good, let's have more of that. And to be honest, people complain about the dialogue and the writing, but it was so accurate to the prequels, especially like episode 1 and episode 2. Some of the weirdest Shakespearean clunky weird dialogue, that is what Star Wars is. I think people looked at that speech from Andor and they were like, this is Star Wars. I'm like, no, it's not. Star Wars is just weird people saying weird things. Is it Harrison Ford said that you can write this shit, but you can't say it? Like, the dialogue in Star Wars is supposed to be a bit weird and a bit clunky because it is this weird space opera. So if you think the Acolyte's dialogue was bad, go back and watch The Phantom Menace. Like, seriously. Or especially, like, episode 2 with trade negotiations and all. It's just, Star Wars is stupid and clunky, and that's why we love it. And that's kind of why I did all of those points before. That's one of the reasons I loved The Acolyte. It's not my favourite Star Wars show, and I did have problems with it, but I'm in the camp of enjoying pretty much all Star Wars. You know, when I was growing up, we had the prequels and the books and stuff, and there was no Star Wars TV shows apart from, you know, the Clone Wars that kind of came out, but wasn't really watching that when it first came out. So it's just nice to have Star Wars all the time, and I will enjoy all the Star Wars all the time. So my issue with the discourse around the Acolyte at the moment is that, one, I think Lucasfilm and Disney are going to take the wrong decision from this. They're going to look at this and go, well, they didn't like us doing something different, so we're going to just do 100 more seasons of The Mandalorian. Which, don't get me wrong, I cosplay a Mandalorian. I absolutely love The Mandalorian, but we need that creative freedom in Star Wars for people to want to push the boat out. And it's being done in books massively and in comics. Go look at the stuff they're doing in the comics at the moment, especially in the main Star Wars run. Although they're keeping it inside the original trilogy, there's just some weird stuff happening, and I want more weird stuff in Star Wars, to be honest. And also just this idea of, like, I know the negativity is probably not the reason that they cancelled it, but it's more the people that are, like, celebrating that this being cancelled. Like, I don't understand that as a Star Wars fan. As a Star Wars fan, I understand you want really good Star Wars all the time, but you have to remember that Star Wars is 100% for everyone. And although you may not have enjoyed The Acolyte and you may think it's the worst thing to ever happen in Star Wars whatsoever, there are a lot of people that really liked this. There are people that this was a comfort show for them, that they found representation in. For some people, this was a really important show. And you are not a Star Wars fan if you think bashing people for liking the show because you think this is not your idea of Star Wars. That doesn't make you a Star Wars fan. That makes you a dick. Don't be a dick. No one likes a dick. Stop it. Star Wars is for everyone. Just get on board with just saying, I didn't like this. Cool, you liked it. Thanks. We'll just move on now. That really frustrates me, and I pulled myself out of, like, many a Instagram, Reddit, Facebook argument with people because of this. Like, if you don't like it, just shut up and move on. Like, some people are really enjoying this. I don't come into your life and shit on the things that you like, so just fuck off. Sorry, language, shouldn't swear. Look, overall, Star Wars is just fun and stupid. It doesn't have to be serious all the time. In fact, most of the time, it's not. It's about weird big aliens and space lizards and... Space lizards? Well, I guess Bosk is a space lizard. But space wizards and people that can move things with their mind, it's dumb. Let there just be some silly, fun Star Wars stuff. It doesn't have to be super serious and, like, auteur cinema all the time. Sometimes people are allowed to like a thing without it being the greatest thing in the world. That got really ranty really quick. Look, overall, what I'm just trying to say is that I think The Acolyte not being renewed is a really bad thing for Star Wars overall. And if you're getting fed up with multiple seasons of The Mandalorian, the Acolyte not being renewed is kind of what's going to happen now with The Mandalorian. Like, we're just going to get more Mandalorian because Grogu sells and The Mandalorian sells. And that's not what we want. We want people to take risks, we want people to be different with Star Wars, and overall, we just want everyone to enjoy Star Wars, which I feel like at the fandom at the moment, we're in such a horrible place where it's like so angry and so aggressive. So my advice for everyone is please just be nice. Most of us are all adults that have thousands of stupid little collectibles and like have lightsabers on their desk because they like a thing that was created by a man in the 70s. It's ridiculous. We're all obsessed with it. I've got a fucking sand crawler up there and a Republic gunship behind me and a bunch of bags with Star Wars on them. It's ludicrous how much we love this. So let's just enjoy it. Just like, your life will be so much better if you just enjoy things and just ignore the things that you don't like. Like, why so much hate? Anyway, hate leads to anger, anger leads to fear, fear leads to suffering, that's the way to the dark side, blah blah blah, Yoda said that. I don't really know how to end this video. Look, that was just my thoughts. I felt like I wanted to say something and I haven't wanted to argue this on Instagram, so this is less a video for the internet, more a video just for me to talk about things I liked and don't like and how I feel the state of current Star Wars is. But if you liked this kind of sit down video where I talk about Star Wars or reviewed something, let me know. Obviously I've got some more cosplay stuff to come. Is there anything behind me that I can show as a surprise? Look, a Mandalorian chest plate, and there's also 2 helmets behind me. I'll do an update on what's going on soon. If you did like this video though, seriously, let me know, and I'd love to do more of these because I have a lot of opinions and want to talk about Star Wars all the time and make Star Wars friends. But while you're here, why not like the video and subscribe, because there's quite a few new people here. If you are new here, I'm Gav. This is Blue's Armory. It's named after my dog. I make Star Wars things. Anyway, I'm rambling. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you on the next one, which I promise will be costume related. Have a great rest of your week. Happy crafting and goodbye.